Alien academics mocked them as pets. Then humans unleashed their true power. The grand hall of Luminara Prime Station sparkled with lights from 1,000 worlds. Beings from across the galaxy filled the massive conference room. Some had scales, others had fur, and many had forms that Earth would find strange. They all came for one reason. The annual Galactic Academic Congress was beginning. Professor Zekther stood at the center stage. His 4 arms gestured smoothly as he spoke. The Krillian scientist was famous across many star systems. His blue skin glowed slightly under the bright lights. Today he would share his most interesting research yet. "Dear colleagues," Zekther began, his voice carrying through the hall, "today I present my findings on a newly discovered species. They call themselves humans." A large screen appeared behind him. Images of Earth filled the display. Green forests, blue oceans, and busy cities covered the planet. The audience leaned forward with interest. "These creatures are fascinating," Zekther continued, "but they are quite simple in their ways. Let me show you." The screen changed to show humans in their daily lives. A woman hugged a small dog. A man laughed with his friends. Children played together in a park. A couple held hands while walking. The alien academics whispered to each other. Some made notes on their data devices. "Notice their behavior," Zekther said, pointing at the screen. "They form strong emotional attachments. They play frequently, even as adults. They touch each other often. They keep small animals as companions." A Vexarian scholar raised one of her 6 tentacles. "Professor, these behaviors seem very basic, almost like domesticated animals we study." "Exactly right," Zekther nodded. "Their emotional responses are very strong but not very controlled. They cry when sad. They laugh loudly when happy. They become attached to almost anything, even to plants and machines." More images appeared. A human crying at a movie. Another human talking lovingly to a houseplant. A person hugging an old vehicle before selling it. Laughter rippled through the hall. The academics found it amusing and somewhat touching. These humans seemed innocent and simple. "Their decision-making is interesting too," Zekther explained. "They often choose based on feelings rather than pure logic. They take risks for emotional reasons. They help strangers because it feels right, not because it benefits them." A Thoraxian researcher spoke up. His insect-like face showed curiosity. "Are they dangerous? Do they have advanced weapons?" "Not particularly," Zekther answered. "They have basic space travel now. Their weapons are simple compared to ours. Their real strength is in their social bonds. They work well in small groups, very loyal, very trusting." The screen showed human families, human work teams, and human friends supporting each other. "In conclusion," Zekther said with a gentle smile, "humans are delightful creatures. They would make wonderful companions, perhaps even good workers for simple tasks, but they lack the logical complexity for true academic achievement. Their emotional nature holds them back from higher thinking." The audience applauded politely. Many smiled with the same gentle amusement people show when watching playful puppies. At the back of the hall, someone sat very quietly. Dr. Sarah Chen had listened to everything. She wore a simple blue suit that matched her black hair. Her dark eyes showed no anger, no frustration, just careful attention. She had arrived 2 hours before the presentation began. Sarah wanted to understand how this Congress worked. She observed everything. The way academics greeted each other, the way they presented ideas, the way they asked questions. When the applause ended, the session leader spoke. "Thank you, Professor Zekther. That was very educational. Now we will take a short break before our next presentation." Beings of all shapes and sizes stood up. They moved toward refreshment tables. They gathered in small groups to discuss what they heard. Sarah stood up too. She walked down the long aisle toward the front. Her steps were calm and steady. Some aliens glanced at her but looked away quickly. They assumed she was an assistant or perhaps a translator for some other delegate. She reached the area where Professor Zekther stood with other senior academics. The Krillian was explaining something to a group of admirers. "Excuse me," Sarah said in perfect galactic common language. The group turned to look at her. Zekther's face showed polite confusion. "Yes, can I help you, young one?" he asked kindly. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen," she said clearly. "I am the delegate from Earth, the human representative to this Congress." Silence fell over the nearby groups. Heads turned, eyes widened, some mouths opened in surprise. Zekther's blue skin darkened slightly. It was the Krillian way of showing embarrassment. Oh my, Dr. Chen, I did not realize. I thought the human delegation would arrive tomorrow." "I came early," Sarah replied with a small smile. "I wanted to learn. Your presentation was very interesting, Professor." "I hope I did not offend," Zekther said quickly. "My research was meant to be objective. Scientific observation only." "Not at all," Sarah assured him. "Science should be honest. You shared what you saw. That is good research practice." The other academics relaxed slightly. The human seemed nice enough, not upset at all. "Welcome to the Congress," a tall Meridian scholar said warmly. "This is your first time here, yes?" "Yes, it is," Sarah nodded. "The proceedings can be quite complex," another academic added. "Very technical, many advanced concepts." "Would you like me to prepare a simplified guide for you?" "That is very kind," Sarah said, "but I believe I will manage. Actually, I was hoping to present some research of my own." Zekther looked surprised but pleased. "Of course, we always welcome new perspectives." "What topic interests you?" "Consciousness patterns across different species," Sarah answered, "and how different types of intelligence can work together." "A wonderful topic for a first presentation," Zekther said encouragingly. "We will make time for you. Perhaps something brief, maybe 20 minutes. "That would be perfect," Sarah agreed. She thanked them and walked away to find her assigned seat. Behind her, the academics chatted quietly. "Such a polite species," one said. "Very eager to learn," another agreed. "It will be sweet to see her try," a third added. "Like watching a child's first school project." They meant no harm. They simply believed what they saw. Humans were emotional, simple, and kind. Wonderful qualities for companions, but not the traits of true intellectual power. Sarah sat down in her seat. She opened her data pad and reviewed her presentation one more time. She knew exactly what they thought of her. Of all humans, that was fine. In a few hours, they would understand differently, not through anger or confrontation, but through something the aliens had forgotten how to value. Sarah smiled to herself as the break ended and beings returned to their seats. The real demonstration was about to begin. 3 days passed on Luminara Prime Station. Sarah spent those days quietly. She attended every session of the Congress. She listened to presentations about physics, biology, and mathematics. She took careful notes. She asked polite questions. The alien academics found her delightful. She was attentive and respectful. She smiled often. She thanked everyone who helped her. Several professors began treating her like a favorite student. "She is such a quick learner," a Vixarian professor told her colleagues. "For a human, she grasps concepts remarkably well." "Very bright for her species," another agreed. "Perhaps humans have more potential than we thought, with proper guidance, of course." Professor Zekther watched Sarah with growing fondness. He saw her as proof of his research. Humans were indeed like friendly, intelligent pets, capable of learning but needing direction from more advanced minds. On the 4th day, Sarah's presentation was scheduled. The session leader announced her name during the morning assembly. "Today we have a special presentation," he said warmly. "Dr. Sarah Chen from Earth will share her first research with us. Let us welcome her kindly." The audience applauded with gentle encouragement. Many smiled. They expected something simple, perhaps a basic introduction to human culture. Maybe some elementary observations about Earth biology. Sarah walked to the stage. She wore a dark green suit today. Her hair was pulled back neatly. She carried only a small data device. No notes, no preparation materials visible. "Thank you all for this opportunity," Sarah began. Her voice was clear and confident. "Today I will present my research on consciousness patterns across different species." She touched her data device. The large screen behind her came alive. Complex mathematical formulas appeared. Diagrams showing neural pathways from dozens of species filled the display. The academics leaned forward with interest. The formulas looked surprisingly sophisticated. "For centuries, galactic science has studied consciousness as a linear scale," Sarah explained. "Simple minds at one end, complex minds at the other. My research suggests this model is incomplete." She moved to the next screen. A three-dimensional model appeared. It showed consciousness as a web of different types of intelligence: logical intelligence, emotional intelligence, spatial intelligence, social intelligence, creative intelligence. "Each species develops different strengths," Sarah continued. "The Krillians excel at logical processing. The Vexarians have superior spatial awareness. The Thoraxians process information in parallel streams." Heads nodded around the room. This was accurate, well researched. "But what happens when we try to solve problems that require multiple types of intelligence?" Sarah asked. She displayed a mathematical problem that had puzzled galactic scientists for generations. It involved quantum field interactions in unpredictable environments. The equations were incomplete. No one had found the missing piece. "This problem has remained unsolved for 300 years, Sarah said. "Every approach has used pure logical analysis. Watch what happens when we add a different variable." Her fingers moved across the data device. New equations appeared, but these were strange. They included factors for uncertainty, for intuition, for pattern recognition that was not purely mathematical. The formulas began to resolve. Step by step, Sarah showed how emotional pattern recognition could identify solutions that pure logic missed, how intuitive leaps could bridge gaps in data, how creative thinking could reframe the entire problem. Within minutes, the unsolved problem had a solution. The hall fell completely silent. Every being stared at the screen. Some stood up to see better. Others pulled out their own devices to verify the mathematics. "This is impossible," someone whispered. "The math is correct," another responded in shock. "I am checking it now." "It works." Professor Zekther stood frozen in his seat. His forearms hung limply. His blue skin had gone pale. Sarah continued calmly. "This is just one example. I have applied this integrated approach to 17 major unsolved problems in galactic science. 14 now have solutions or promising new directions." She displayed the list. Problems in medicine, in physics, in environmental science, each one transformed by combining logical analysis with other forms of intelligence. A senior Meridian scholar stood up. Her voice shook slightly. "Dr. Chen, this is extraordinary work. Why has no one thought of this before?" Sarah's expression remained gentle. "Because most galactic species optimize for one type of intelligence. You become very strong in that area, but you lose other capabilities. Humans never specialized. We kept all our different types of thinking. We thought it made us weaker. Perhaps it makes us different instead." "But your species is so emotional," a Thoraxian protested. "So driven by feelings. How can that produce such precise mathematics?" "Emotions are not the opposite of logic," Sarah explained. "They are another form of data processing. Fear helps us identify danger faster than conscious thought. Joy helps us recognize beneficial patterns. Empathy helps us predict behavior in complex social systems. Humans learn to use emotions as tools, not ignore them as weaknesses." The questions began flooding in. Academics from every species wanted to know more. How did humans train this integrated thinking? Could other species learn it? Why had Earth hidden such brilliant minds? We did not hide, Sarah answered the last question. We simply arrived when we were ready, and you saw what you expected to see. Professor Zekther finally found his voice. He stood slowly. Dr. Chen, I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on surface observations. I called your species simple. I was wrong. Sarah smiled at him. You were not wrong about what you saw, Professor. Humans are emotional. We do bond easily. We do play and laugh and cry freely. But those things do not make us simple. They make us human. She paused, then added gently, perhaps intelligence is not about removing emotions and instincts. Perhaps true intelligence is learning when to use each type of thinking. The session leader approached the stage, his voice filled with respect now. Dr. Chen, the Congress would be honored if you would present the full details of your research. We need days, not minutes, to understand this properly. I would be happy to, Sarah agreed. As she left the stage, the applause was different from before, not polite, not encouraging, but genuine and amazed. Sarah walked back to her seat. She passed Professor Zekther's row. The Krillian scientist looked at her with wonder and something else, humility. She had not yelled at them. She had not shamed them. She simply showed them something new. But the real test was still coming. Sarah knew that knowledge alone would not change old beliefs. Something more would be needed. Something that would prove humans were not just intelligent in theory. They needed to see human capability in action. The next morning began like any other day on Luminara Prime. Thousands of beings moved through the station's corridors. Scientists discussed theories over breakfast. Students hurried to their classes. Everything felt normal and safe. Sarah sat in the conference hall with other delegates. Today's session focused on advanced engineering concepts. She listened carefully, still learning about galactic technology. At exactly 10:30 in the morning, the lights flickered. Everyone paused. Beings looked up at the ceiling. The lights steadied after a moment. Probably just a minor power adjustment, someone said. The presentation continued. 5 minutes later, the lights flickered again. This time, a low humming sound filled the hall. The floor vibrated slightly. The session leader stood up. Please remain calm. I will check with station operations. He touched his communication device. His face went rigid. Everyone, please evacuate to the emergency assembly areas. Move quickly but do not panic. Questions erupted from the audience. What was happening? Was it dangerous? How serious was the problem? I do not have details yet, the leader said firmly, but we must follow safety procedures. Please move now. Thousands of beings began filing out of the conference hall. The corridors filled with concerned voices. Station alarms began sounding. Red lights flashed along the walls. Sarah moved with the crowd. She noticed something others missed. The temperature was rising. The air felt different, heavier somehow. In the main plaza, academics gathered in confused groups. Station officials tried to organize everyone. The head of station security, a large Krillian named Velkin, climbed onto a platform. Please listen carefully, Velkin announced. We have a critical situation. Our quantum containment field has malfunctioned. The field keeps our power core stable. Without it, the core could breach. Nervous whispers spread through the crowd. What does breach mean? A young student asked. It means the station could be destroyed, someone answered quietly. Velkin continued, our best engineers are working on the problem. We are also preparing evacuation ships. This is only a precaution. Please stay calm. Sarah pushed through the crowd toward the platform. She reached Velkin as he was stepping down. What exactly is malfunctioning? She asked. Velkin looked down at her. You are the human delegate, yes. This is not your concern. Please return to your group. I might be able to help, Sarah said. That is kind, but we have the galaxy's best engineers here, Velkin replied. They are handling it, Sarah persisted. How long have they been working on it? 2 hours, Velkin admitted. The malfunction started early this morning. And how long before the core becomes unstable? Velkin hesitated. 4 to 6 hours, maybe less. May I see the engineering bay? Sarah asked. Dr. Chen, I appreciate your offer, but please, Sarah interrupted. Just let me look. If I cannot help, I will leave immediately. Something in her voice made Velkin pause. He studied her face. Finally, he nodded. Follow me, but stay out of the way. They moved through the station's inner corridors. Other humans appeared beside Sarah. She had sent quick messages to the human delegation. Engineers, technicians, and scientists joined her. We might need help, she had told them simply. The engineering bay was chaos. 20 alien engineers crowded around massive control panels. Holographic displays showed the failing containment field. Red warnings flashed everywhere. The chief engineer, a Thoraxian named Clix, directed his team. Reroute power through the secondary grid. Boost the magnetic field strength by 15%. Engineers moved quickly, implementing his orders. The displays changed. For a moment the field stabilized. Then it collapsed again, worse than before. The secondary grid cannot handle the load, someone reported. Then we use the tertiary system, Clix commanded. Sir, the tertiary system is 40 years old. The specifications are outdated. We have no choice. Begin the transfer. Sarah watched the displays. She noticed patterns in the field fluctuations. Random at first glance, but not truly random. There was a rhythm to it. She moved closer. A human engineer named Marcus stood beside her. What are you thinking? He whispered. The field is not just failing, Sarah said quietly. It is resonating like a vibration that keeps building. Marcus looked at the displays again. You are right. It is a harmonic feedback loop. If they keep adding more power, they will make it worse, Sarah realized. She approached Clix. Excuse me, Chief Engineer. Clix barely glanced at her. No visitors during emergency operations. I think I see the problem, Sarah said. I am sure you do, Clix replied, his attention on his screens. Everyone sees problems. I need solutions. You need to reduce power, not increase it, Sarah stated. Now Clix looked at her. Reduce power, the field is collapsing. It needs more power to stabilize. The field is vibrating in a feedback loop, Sarah explained. More power increases the vibration. You need to dampen it instead. That is absurd, Clix said flatly. A weaker field will collapse faster. Not if you pulse the power in counter-rhythm to the vibration, Sarah countered. A Meridian engineer nearby looked up. That is a very unconventional approach, possibly dangerous. More dangerous than a core breach, Marcus asked. Clix shook his head. I cannot implement untested theories during a crisis. We follow established protocols. Your protocols are not working, Sarah said, her voice still calm but firm. You have been trying for hours. The situation is getting worse. Because the damage is too severe, Clix argued. We need more time, more resources. You do not have more time, Sarah reminded him. Velkin, who had been listening, stepped forward. Chief Engineer, what harm would it do to hear her full idea? It would waste time we do not have, Clix said. Time better spent on proven methods. Sarah looked around the bay. Every engineer was focused on their stations, following orders, implementing the same approaches faster and faster, but nothing was improving. She saw something else too, fear. These brilliant beings were afraid. Fear made them cling to familiar methods, to established protocols, to what they knew even when it failed. I have 17 humans here, Sarah said suddenly. Engineers, scientists, and technicians. We can implement my solution while your team continues with the protocols. If we fail, nothing is lost. If we succeed, everyone survives. Clix opened his mouth to refuse again, but Velkin made a decision. Do it. Use the auxiliary control station. You have 1 hour to show results. That is not sufficient time to test a radical new approach, Clix protested. Then we will know quickly if it fails, Velkin replied. 1 hour, Dr. Chen, Sarah nodded. She turned to her team. Marcus, I need you on power regulation. Chen Li, monitor the harmonic frequencies. Everyone else stations. The humans moved with quick efficiency. No debates, no committees. They trusted Sarah's judgment and each other's skills. Within minutes, they had the auxiliary systems ready. The real test was about to begin. But this time, it was not about theories or presentations. This time, lives depended on whether humans could turn their different way of thinking into actual results. The clock was ticking. Sarah stood at the auxiliary control station. Her team surrounded her, fingers flying across keyboards and control panels. The holographic display showed the quantum containment field in red. Warnings blinked urgently. "Marcus, what is the current vibration frequency?" Sarah asked. "Fluctuating between zero point 0.7 and zero point 0.9 hertz," Marcus replied. "It keeps shifting." "That is the problem," Sarah said. "The field is trying to find stability but keeps overshooting. Chen Li, can you model a counterpulse pattern?" Chen Li, a young physicist, nodded. Her hands moved quickly across her screen. "Creating the model now. If we pulse at the inverse frequency, it should dampen the vibration." Across the room, Chief Engineer Clix watched while managing his own team. "Increase power to Section 4 by another 10%, he ordered. His team complied. The containment field strengthened for 30 seconds. Then it wobbled again. The warnings grew louder. "Sir, we are at maximum safe power levels," a Thoraxian engineer reported nervously. "Then we override the safety limits," Clix decided. "We need more power." Sarah heard this. She looked up from her station. "Chief Engineer, please do not do that. You will amplify the resonance." "Focus on your own approach, Dr. Chen," Clix said tersely. "I will handle mine." Sarah turned back to her team. No time to argue. "Chen Li, how is the model coming?" "Almost ready. But Sarah, this is very risky. If we calculate the frequency wrong, even by a small amount, we could make everything worse." "I know," Sarah said quietly. She closed her eyes for a moment. The other humans watched her. They knew what she was doing. She was not calculating. She was feeling, intuiting the pattern. "The frequency is not random," Sarah said, opening her eyes. "It follows a progression. Like a heartbeat that is speeding up. Chen Li, add a decay factor to your model. Account for the acceleration." "That is not in any standard physics model," Chen Li hesitated. "Trust me," Sarah said simply. Chen Li looked at her for a long moment. Then she nodded and added the factor. The model changed on her screen. "That actually makes sense. The mathematics work better now." "Good," Sarah said. "Marcus, prepare to implement on my mark. Start at minimum power. We will increase gradually." On the other side of the bay, Clix was having problems. "The override is not working. The field is rejecting the additional power." "Because you are fighting against the natural rhythm," Sarah called over. "You need to work with it, not against it." "Your theories mean nothing if they are not tested," Clix shot back. "Then let me test them," Sarah replied calmly. Velkin, who stood watching both teams, made a decision. "Chief Engineer, hold your position. Dr. Chen, proceed with your attempt." Clix's face showed frustration, but he obeyed. His team stopped their work. Everyone in the bay turned to watch the humans. Sarah took a deep breath. "Marcus, begin the counterpulse. Start at 5% power." Marcus engaged the system. A new energy pattern flowed into the containment field. The vibrations continued. Nothing changed at first. "Increase to 10%, Sarah instructed. The vibrations lessened slightly. Just a small change, but something was happening. 15%, Sarah said. Her voice stayed steady. Calm, the field's red color began to shift. Warnings decreased. The vibration amplitude dropped noticeably. Alien engineers gasped. "It is working," someone whispered. 20%, Sarah continued. The containment field stabilized more. The dangerous resonance pattern was breaking up. Instead of one massive vibration, it became multiple smaller ones, easier to manage. But then something unexpected happened. A new alarm sounded. A different section of the field began failing, one they had not monitored before. "Section 7 is collapsing," an engineer shouted. Sarah's eyes widened. Their solution was working on sections 1 through 6, but it was pulling energy away from section 7. The field was larger than they realized. "We need to expand the counterpulse to all 8 sections," Chen Li said urgently. "But I do not have time to recalculate the model for each one." The alien engineers shook their heads. "Impossible. Each section needs individual calibration. That takes hours of precise measurement." Sarah looked at her human team. "We do not have hours, we have minutes. Can we improvise?" A human engineer named David spoke up. "If we treat the whole field as one system instead of separate sections, we could apply the same pattern everywhere." "That goes against every engineering principle," a Vexarian engineer protested. "Each section has different parameters, different stresses. You cannot treat them as identical." "We are not treating them as identical," Sarah explained. "We are treating them as connected, like instruments in an orchestra. They are different, but they play together." She turned to her team. "David, take sections 7 and 8. Marcus, adjust sections 1 through 3. Chen Li, handle 4 through 6. Use your intuition, feel the rhythm, adjust in real time." "That is madness," Clix exclaimed. "You cannot manage 8 complex systems by feeling." "Watch us," Sarah said simply. The humans split up. Each took their assigned stations. No long planning meetings, no committee approvals, just trust in each other and in their own instincts. They began adjusting the counterpulse across all 8 sections. Sometimes their changes made things briefly worse. Then they adapted. Shifted, tried different approaches. The alien engineers watched in amazement. The humans were not following any protocol. They were improvising, responding to changes instantly, making decisions based on intuition and experience, not just calculations. "Section 7 is stabilizing," David reported. "Section 2 is holding steady," Marcus added. "Sections 4 and 6 are synchronized now," Chen Li called out. Sarah moved between stations. She did not give orders. She offered suggestions. She encouraged. She asked questions that helped her team think differently. "What if we phase the pulses?" she suggested to Marcus. "Let them overlap slightly." Marcus tried it. "That works better. The field is responding." Slowly, section by section, the containment field began to stabilize. The red warnings turned yellow, then green. The vibrations dampened to safe levels. 20 minutes after they started, the crisis was over. The engineering bay fell silent. Every being stared at the displays showing the stable, healthy containment field. Velkin was the first to speak. "Dr. Chen, you did it. You saved the station." Sarah shook her head. "My team did it together." Professor Zekther had arrived during the crisis. He stood at the back of the bay, watching everything. Now he came forward. His 4 arms hung at his sides. His expression showed wonder. "I have been studying humans for 2 years," he said softly. "I thought I understood your species. I was wrong about everything." "Not everything," Sarah said kindly. "You were right that we are emotional, that we bond easily, that we trust each other quickly. You just did not realize those were our strengths." Clix approached slowly. The proud chief engineer looked humbled. "I should have listened to you from the beginning. I could have solved this faster if I had." "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "Or maybe we needed to work together, your knowledge and our adaptability, different approaches combining for a better solution." She looked around the bay at all the faces watching her. Krillians, Vexarians, Thoraxians, Meridians, and more. "We are not pets," Sarah said gently. "We are not simple, but we are also not superior. We are just different, and maybe the galaxy needs different kinds of thinking." The beings in the bay slowly began to understand. Humans had not unleashed some hidden power. They had simply shown what they always were: adaptive, creative, intuitive, brave enough to trust themselves and each other. The galaxy had been looking for intelligence in only one form. They missed all the other ways a mind could be brilliant. Now they were beginning to see. The next morning, Sarah woke to find messages flooding her communication device. Hundreds of them, requests for meetings, invitations to collaborate, questions about human methods, apologies for past assumptions. She read through them while drinking her morning tea. Each message showed genuine curiosity and respect. The tone was completely different from a week ago. When she arrived at the conference hall, something had changed. Beings stood when she entered. They nodded respectfully. Some approached to shake her hand or offer their species greeting gestures. Professor Zekther waited near the entrance. He looked like he had not slept much. "Dr. Chen," he said quietly, "may I speak with you privately?" "Of course, Professor," Sarah replied. They walked to a quiet observation deck overlooking the stars. For a long moment, Zekther just looked out at the darkness. "I have been a scientist for 40 years," he finally said. "I believed I understood how to study species objectively. I thought I was open-minded, fair." He turned to face Sarah. "But I was not. I saw your emotions and assumed weakness. I saw your playfulness and assumed simplicity. I saw your social bonds and assumed you were like domesticated animals." "You saw what was really there," Sarah said gently. "We are emotional. We do play, we do bond easily. But those things are not weaknesses," Zekther continued. "They are tools, sophisticated tools that my people optimized away thousands of years ago. We chose pure logic. We thought it made us superior." "It made you different," Sarah corrected. "Not better or worse, just different," Zekther nodded slowly. "Yesterday I watched your team save this station. You did not have the best equipment, you did not have the most training, but you succeeded where our experts failed. Do you know why?" Sarah waited for him to continue. "Because you trusted each other completely," Zekther said. "You made decisions in seconds that would take our committees hours. You adapted to changes instantly. You felt the solution before you calculated it." He paused, then added, "And you did it with joy. Even during the crisis, I saw you smile at your teammates, encourage them, support them. You were afraid, but you did not let fear paralyze you." "That is how humans work best," Sarah explained. "We perform better when we feel connected to each other, when we trust, when we support." "Krillians cannot do that anymore," Zekther admitted. "We spent millennia training ourselves to suppress emotions, to decide everything through logic alone. We thought we were evolving into something better." "You evolved into what your environment needed," Sarah said. "There is no shame in that." "But we lost something important," Zekther replied, "and we did not even realize it was missing." Sarah looked out at the stars. "Maybe it is not lost. Maybe it just needs to be remembered." Zekther considered this. "Would you teach us, help us understand how to integrate different types of thinking?" "I would be honored," Sarah said, "but I think we should all teach each other. Humans have things to learn too." That afternoon, the Galactic Academic Congress held a special assembly. Every delegate attended. The hall was completely full. The Congress leader stood at the podium. "We gather today to address recent events. The crisis on this station revealed truths we need to acknowledge." He gestured to Sarah. "Dr. Chen, would you join me on stage?" Sarah walked up. The applause was warm and genuine. "The Congress owes Earth an apology," the leader stated clearly. "We dismissed your species based on superficial observations. We assumed emotional nature meant intellectual limitation. We were profoundly wrong." He turned to face the full assembly. "But this is not just about humans. This is about how we define intelligence itself. For too long, we have measured all species against one narrow standard: logical processing speed, mathematical precision, memory capacity." The leader's voice grew stronger. "We forgot that intelligence comes in many forms: emotional intelligence that helps understand others, creative intelligence that finds new solutions, social intelligence that builds strong teams, intuitive intelligence that recognizes patterns before calculations confirm them." He looked at Sarah. "Humans kept all these types of intelligence. They never specialized. We thought that made them weak generalists. Instead, it made them uniquely capable." The assembly listened in silence. Therefore, the leader announced, the Congress formally invites Earth to become a full member institution, not as students, not as junior partners, but as equals with much to teach us. The applause was thunderous. Beings of every species stood and clapped, but the leader held up his hands. There is more. We are launching a new research initiative, the study of integrated intelligence. Dr. Chen will lead this project. She will work with scientists from every species to understand how different types of thinking can work together. Sarah felt surprised but also deeply moved. I accept, she said, but only if we approach this as true collaboration. Humans learning from you as much as you learn from us. Agreed, the leader said warmly. Professor Zekther stood from his seat. I would like to volunteer for this project. I want to help correct the mistakes I made in my research. Your help would be welcome, Professor, Sarah replied with a smile. Others began volunteering. A Vexarian mathematician, a Thoraxian engineer, a Meridian psychologist. Within minutes, dozens of beings offered their expertise. After the assembly ended, Sarah found herself surrounded by beings wanting to talk, not as curious observers studying a simple species, but as colleagues eager to work together. A young Krillian student approached shyly. Dr. Chen, may I ask a question? Of course, Sarah encouraged. When your people first developed space travel, did you know you were special, that you had abilities other species did not? Sarah thought carefully before answering. No, we actually worried we were behind, less advanced. We saw species with better technology and stronger logic. We wondered if we could ever catch up. But you did not give up, the student observed. No, Sarah agreed. We kept trying, kept learning, kept being ourselves. The student nodded thoughtfully. That is very human, I think, to doubt yourself but try anyway, Sarah smiled. Yes, that is very human. As the day ended, Sarah stood alone on the observation deck again. She thought about the past week, the assumptions, the challenge, the crisis, the revelation. Humans had not changed. They were exactly what they always were, emotional, social, playful, and intuitive. They just stopped hiding it, stopped apologizing for it. The galaxy thought those traits made them pets, simple creatures needing guidance. Instead, those traits made them teachers, showing that intelligence was not about removing humanity. It was about embracing all the different ways a mind could be brilliant. Sarah looked at Earth in the distance. A small blue planet that seemed so insignificant compared to vast galactic empires. But size did not measure worth. Power did not measure value. Sometimes the smallest voice spoke the deepest truth. Sometimes the most emotional heart held the clearest wisdom. The galaxy was learning this now, and Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Humans had not unleashed their true power. They had simply shown who they really were, and that, it turned out, was more than enough. The